Ryan's counting up how many wide receivers he watched because he wants to flex on us. But we're back here on the first team. I'm Joe DeLeone, joined by my co-host Ryan Roberts. Today we're doing our second to last position ranking show for summer scouting. We almost timed it up. We almost did it. A couple of vacation weeks kind of slowed us down. It's a little bit my fault, but regardless, we've got quarterbacks next week. That one's going to be fun. I'm sure that is going to be an explosive debate. I don't think today is going to be as much of a divisive conversation. I think more than especially the DB show, the safety show we did, I think we're going to have pretty good agreement here because you gave me a hint on one guy that I almost didn't watch.
And
I am so happy I watched him. I don't know how anybody isn't talking about this guy because he is really freaking good. But I want to put this out there. I want to talk about this before we start as we kind of do talking overview. I think the best position group's receiver, man. I'm going to go as far as say that all of the guys that I watched in every single one of the – not all the guys that I watched, sorry. All of the guys that I'm talking about today in my top 5 all have top 50 grades or higher. And I know that I missed a couple guys that might have had first-round grades. Like that's how talented this class is. And I don't have any other groups, any position groups that were anything like this.
I think I'm counting it up right now. So I watched 15 guys, Joe. I'm not trying to flex, man. I'm sorry. Imagine not grinding, by the way. Just not a grinder.
Oh, shut up.
9 players with a late 3rd round grade or better out of the 15.
Wow.
Just to put that into perspective. Only 1 PFA grade, only 1 7th, only 1 6th, and then the rest were late 4s or better, which is a pretty hefty number. So I think that we have top level talent here. I just think there's some really nice depth to this class, at least for players that I've watched so far. So yeah, man. Wide receiver, after kind of a down year in the 2023 NFL draft class, I think wide receiver is back to the forefront in 2024. That is what it appears at this time.
Make sure you check out BetOnline for all of your sports betting needs. For anything that I do betting related, I go on over to betonline.ag and I use promo code BELIEVE50. BetOnline has all of the latest updated odds for the NFL and college football seasons. Anything you need, whether it's futures, live in-game betting, no matter what, your football betting needs are met at BetOnline. And again, make sure you use that promo code BELIEVE50, BLEAV50 to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Yeah, I don't know if it'll compare to some of those historic classes,
close,
but we've got a couple. Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, it might not be that far off. There are going to be a lot of guys drafted very, very early, as we've kind of indicated here. I'm going to start off with my number 5 guy, as we always do.
Yes.
That being Rome Odunze from Washington, 6'3", 215. Big receiver, but he's not built like he's a hulked up guy. Like he's kind of has like a leaner looking frame than you'd expect for this big player. But I think that he's got great linear acceleration. You kind of expect him to be this jump ball threat. But he's not really that. He's more of a deep vertical guy from what I saw on film. Good acceleration, good long speed. He's got a nice frame to go up and grab the football out of the air. I thought that he was best as a deep route runner. I think his change of direction is good enough to create separation, but you're going to be asking him to mostly do a lot of deep routes, which works perfectly in Washington's offense. But just in general, I think he's just very well-rounded. And we saw the production as a result playing in an offense that knows how to use his skills. I don't know if this is a great comp, but I think his physical profile kind of reminded me of Darius Slayton in the way that like Darius Slayton's tall, he's long, he can attack downfield, but he's not really built to be a possession guy, and he's not really built to be a jump threat, contested catch player, even though he has the frame for it.
I think styles are similar to Darius Slayton. I could see that one for sure. Obviously, Odunze is a little bit bigger than Slayton. Slayton was a pretty slight guy coming out of Auburn, but I had Rome Odunze at number 3 on my list, Joe. So I was a little bit higher. I mean, I don't even know if I'm a little bit higher. I had an early 2nd round grade on him, so I don't know if even in a vacuum that's a lot higher than what you saw of Rome Odunze. Mm-hmm. We see him, though, very similarly. I think that the change of direction is fine. I don't think it's bad, but it's nothing like – it's not substantial. I don't think he's going to be a great short to intermediate route runner ever. But the kid can run. He can really run at his size. I mean, there's apparently there's apparently rumors out there that he's going to run in the 4.3s and have like a 40+ inch
Wow.
vert. Like, I don't know if it's
Oh my
quite that
God.
on film. Like, he's more like a mid 4.4 type of dude to me, like 4.44,
Yeah.
4.45. Like, he can run though. There's no doubt. And for his size, he could scoot. There's no doubt. The one thing that drove me crazy a little bit about him is I feel like he tracks the football incredibly well down the football field. Like, he makes a lot of plays on the ball, but he doesn't always extend his hands, right? Like, he lets a lot of balls get
No.
into his frame a little bit too much, and that worries me. I mean, it was similar to like Quentin Johnston last year to a degree, but I do think his ball skills are better than what Quentin Johnston's were consistently. But I really like Odunze as that vertical stretch type of player. Like, he can really take the top off. He can stretch the field. If he attacks the football better in the air, then I think this is a clear first-round player when all is said and done, because he's got the height, weight, speed element that the NFL is going to love. I just think it's more consistent ability to pluck the football out of the air. And if he does that, he's going to be a really good football player, because he's also hard to counteract at the line of scrimmage a ton, because
Yes.
he's strong, man. Like, he's a strong, explosive athlete. So I liked a lot of Odunze. I wish he was a little bit more flexible, and I wish he attacked the football in the air a little bit better. But otherwise, I really did like him a lot.
I got distracted by a text. What spot did you have him at?
Number 3 on my list, Rome Odunze.
Oh
So,
my God! I can't
a little
believe I
bit
missed
higher,
you
but-
saying that. Yeah. That you almost spoke more negatively on him, even though he's higher on your list.
It's called
I kinda had a
analysis,
feeling
Joe. It's called analysis, man.
Oh,
Just kidding.
okay, Oh wow, your placement of him at 3. I'm kind of intrigued by who ends up in different spots for you. Who's your number 5 though?
Number 5 for me was Malik Nabers from LSU. I had a late second round grade on Malik. I love the athlete, man. I really do. I think Nabers can run. I think he's explosive. I just think he attacks the football really well in the air, man. Like, he made some acrobatic catches last year for LSU.
Yeah.
So I think that there is an all-around profile to him being higher on this list for me when all is said and done, because I think he has kind of that, despite only being 6 foot and 180, 190 pounds, whatever the heck he is right now, he attacks the football well. He's explosive. He gets up to top gear very quickly. And I think he's decently flexible as well. The things that drove me crazy, though, about Malik Nabers, which is why he was a little bit down on my list, he's a very lackadaisical player before the catch, in my opinion, right? Like, his routes are just a little bit nonchalant. I think that his breaks could be a little bit more consistent. I think that he's going to have trouble separating short to intermediate if he doesn't just kind of have a little bit more urgency early on in reps. So I want him to be the athlete before the catch that he is working vertically and after the catch, because that is an impressive looking athlete. I just think the attention to detail of playing the wide receiver position before the catch as a route runner needs to take a step forward, because if it does and he's able to separate that way, then I look at a kid that I think is going to run really well, has the ability to run routes, and can win with the football in the air. He has a chance to be an all-around really good wide receiver. I just think there's attention to detail as a route runner and a little bit more urgency that he needs to play with as a receiver.
Yeah, I'm not shocked that we're talking about another LSU guy on this list. And I honestly think he's a lot further along than Keon Butte was last year, where like there were inconsistencies for Butte and concerns for Butte, and those all immediately showed up as soon as the season started. But Nabers, I'm really in on him. He actually was my number 4 wide receiver. I gave him a late first round grade. I love the player.
Whoa, you're high.
Yeah,
man.
late first. I'm really, really high on him. Good frame for a 6 foot wide receiver. I think that like he's built pretty well. I also, like you talked about there, the athlete that he is, really explosive. I was obsessed with watching him in and out of his stance. Like, he's just out of like a gun fired out of a bullet fired out of a gun. He is immediately off to top speed, and his feet are so quick that he's able to create that separation. And then you talked about the one thing that I was impressed with. I thought that in what separates him from Xavier Worthy, who have similar-ish profiles and play styles, is that he is really strong in contested situations. Like, he can make acrobatic, difficult catches. And despite not having like great play strength, he's got good enough for a smaller receiver that he can go up, he can grab the football out of the air, he can win in those tight, close quarter spots that I'm not really concerned. I just see so much consistency. Like, I love every aspect of his game. He's not like an elite prospect, but I wouldn't be surprised. And I think it's very likely when this is all said and done by the end of the season that he ends up being a late first round pick. The one thing before you kind of come at me and you do your bit of like, you always
I
talking
didn't
about these
say
LSU
anything. I
guys.
didn't say
I know you're
anything,
going to
man.
say it.
I didn't say
I
anything.
have to say the positive for LSU is Malik Nabers. The negative, his production would have been so much higher if Jaden Daniels didn't stink. There would be
Oh man.
so much more production if he was able to consistently get him the ball and push the ball downfield. There was one play against Georgia where I think he was going against Keely Ringo, and he completely cooks Keely. Like he's separating, he's creating separation. But Jane Daniels doesn't have the power to throw like a 40-yard deep ball that he completely underthrows him, and then Keely just puts his arms up and knocks the ball out of the air. It was so infuriating. And to that point, like Garrett Nussmeier, when he played the second half of that SEC championship game, that was one of his best games production-wise. I don't know, man. I think the Nabers is a little hamstrung, and he might be one of those guys that just continues to ascend when he gets to the NFL.
Man, your LSU buddies are going to come at you for the Jaden Daniels conversation, man. They're going to come at
right,
you.
I have a feeling.
Joe. Oh, you might need to clip that and put that on Twitter. That would be fantastic, man. You should do that. Last note I have on Nabers, athletically, not comparing him as a football player, right? I only do play style and athletic comps. That's the only place I go. I think athletically, though, there are some comparisons that you can make to what Odell Beckham Jr. was as a football player. Can win in the air. Springy.
I was thinking that, but I didn't want to push that. I didn't want to be a jackass and push that, but I'll let you do it.
Oh, you let me be the jackass. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, Joe, honestly, though, like he has a slighter frame. He's not the biggest guy of all time, but he's explosive, gets up to top speed really well, can run, but like he has an uncanny ability for his size to win in the air. And that was what made Odell Beckham Jr. so special, was like, even though he didn't have incredible play strength, it was like, obviously everyone remembers the stupid catch he made in the end zone, but like he did that all the time, winning in the air, which was just kind of uncommon. So I think there are some parallels as far as athletically what Nabers can do to what Odell Beckham was at his best in the NFL.
Why is Emeka Egbuka your number 4 receiver?
He's not my number 4 receiver.
Okay, who's your number 4? I don't want to spoil anything. Who's your number 4?
Were you not high on Emeka Egbuka?
No, I am. So I'm wondering. I thought that was your way of saying he didn't make the list. So
No. I really like Emeka Egbuka. I was talking about Malik Nabers. What are you talking about?
No. You're on to number 4 now.
Yeah. Number 4 for me is Keon Coleman from Michigan State, second round grade. Hey man, I'm in on Keon. I am. I told Joe to watch him. Like I am very in on Keon Coleman. He is 6'4", 215 pounds, former Division I caliber basketball player in high school as well. He could have played a bunch of different schools. He averaged like 26 points a game as a high school junior. This kid is springy. This kid is explosive. He can carry vertically. I think he's going to run like 4.48 at his size at 6'4", 215 pounds. Like that kid can run. He reminds me as a more explosive version of what Michael Pittman Jr. was coming out of USC. Like that's what I see. Ball skills are incredible, man. Catch point prowess is incredible. Everything translates to him being a vertically oriented pass catcher. Like he's going to be one of those guys that on the NFL level has like 1,000 yards, but only takes him 60 catches to get there. Like he just doesn't need a huge volume. Think of like when Mike Evans was young and still could run. That's the type of football player that I think you're potentially getting in a Keon Coleman. That being said, I do think there are some limitations. Like I think he's a decently loose player for his size, but like he's never going to be a short to intermediate crazy route runner. Like he's not going to be that type of guy. This is a vertically oriented, big receiver, catch point guy, can run for days. Number 4, Keon Coleman, formerly Michigan State, now going to play at Florida State for his junior campaign.
Yeah, and his production is just going to go up, and he's the better receiver of the two, and Johnny Wilson's a good football player in his own right. Very unique player at 6'7". I was actually kind of prepared for our 1 and 2 to be the same, and I have to come out here and say that Keon Coleman is my number 2 wide receiver. Dude,
wow.
I
all right.
loved Keon Coleman. I watched Keon Coleman, man. And I was like, this dude is a monster. I actually kind of got more Drake London from his game when I watched him, just almost like a bully. That was the best way that I can describe him.
He can run. He can run a lot better than Drake, though. Wouldn't you say? I mean,
yes. Yeah. I think he's a more explosive version of Drake London, and Drake London was good enough to go in the top 10. And
I do think I'll say this though. I will say this about the comp because I understand where you're going with it. Drake was a lot looser of an athlete, though, in my opinion, than Keon. Keon's a
Okay.
little bit more vertically oriented, is all I'm saying.
Okay.
That's all. Yeah.
Keon's a bully. He
Yes.
is
Yes, he
like
is.
Draymond Green in the post, kick your ass up and down the field type of a bully. And I'm shocked by the fact that he's listed at only 215. Like he is just a jacked wide receiver the way that
Yeah.
he's built to play this position. That massive frame sets him up to be physically dominant in tight situations. We talked about the ball skills. The ball's up in the air. You just put it somewhere near him. The guy's going to make the catch. He is
He's a
that alley
basketball
oop
player.
type of guy. Yeah, I'm obsessed with that. And then you talked about the fact that he's probably going to run in the 4.48 range. I think that it's tough when you get these bigger guys and ask them to change direction. So like my expectation wasn't like, oh, he's going to be super fluid in and out of
Sure.
his cuts. And he's going to be crazy, but he's good enough where it's not a detriment. It doesn't hold him back. I'm not normally in on these possession guys, but I think athletically he is up there to put in that discussion for why I am placing him at number 2. I'm surprised I'm way further in on Keon Coleman than you are. I am so bought in. I think that he's going to be a monster this season for Florida State.
Hey man, one of my most pleasant surprises. I remember, so for RPM, Ben had recommended him like a few months ago, and I wanted to go back and watch him because I had never really I'd seen the highlights, but I hadn't watched him. And yeah, man, I mean, I'm at number 4 right now. I could see him getting up to at least number 3 by the end of the season. Like he's that type of dude because again, I mean, you don't find guys that are 6'4", 215, potential Division I basketball players who are going to run in the 4.4s. Like you just don't see those types of guys. So yeah, I think that he is as a vertically oriented, big outside receiver, Keon Coleman has special traits, and he could develop into being a dominant force. And dude, he's the small receiver for Florida State, though, Joe. He's the small receiver, right? They're
hilarious.
Like the other side of the field, you almost got a 6'7", 240-pound guy. It's like it's wild, man. But I think Coleman's going to have phenomenal numbers for Florida State this year.
So you already gave your
Number
3. I just gave my 2. So I think I know who your number 2 is. Your number 2 is Emeka Egbuka, who is my number 3. Emeka Egbuka, elite athlete, explosive athlete, but most importantly, the change of direction is elite. Like he cuts on a dime. He changes direction on a dime. Like it's ridiculous to watch his route running and his ability to create separation with his feet. I also think that what is really nice about him, pretty good body control. He's able to make some nice catches. I think that his hands are pretty consistent. I just think that the only thing that stood out for me while I wasn't like really down and like worried about him, but my only like slight issue is just there's not a lot of play strength. So I'm not going to ask him to break any tackles. I'm not going to ask him to make any tight contested catches. He is somebody you want in the slot that is going to be a technician as a route runner. He's going to get open. He can get open downfield because he's got that long speed. He checks every box in that regard. But if there's going to be any contact, I just don't see him winning. I still give him a first round grade. Like I love Emeka Egbuka. I just liked Keon Coleman slightly more.
That's fair. Emeka is a dude, man. He's an absolute dude. I mean, he is at 6'1", 205 pounds. He's what the modern slot looks like now because he's a little bit of a bigger body, but also has all the change of direction stuff that you want. I mean, I expected, honestly, Joe, when I first went into that watch, I was expecting Emeka Egbuka to be all athlete and maybe not as refined as a route runner. And then I watched him. I'm like, nope, my guy can snap it off. Like he's got some really good route running ability. He's incredibly explosive in and out of his cuts. And he's really fast, man. Like he's a 4.4 something athlete. I'm sure of it, right? And his short area quickness matches that ability. He's an after catch guy. He can make guys miss in open space, which is fantastic. This is a very easy eval to being a slot receiver at the next level. Like easy. Yeah. My questions about him, which is why he's number 2 for me, is, well, that's not the only reason.
Whoa, yeah, wait. If there wasn't a man named Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he'd be number 1.
I'm just saying that he would be. So I had a mid-first round grade on him, and then we'll get into Marvin Harrison, obviously, at number 1 here in a second, right? My point is that I don't think that there would be as much of separation between Harrison and Egbuka if I knew for certain that Egbuka could play outside a lot of the snaps, right? Like he's an easy slot, but you don't see him play outside a ton for one, and I don't see any really contested catch opportunities on film much, right? So I don't know how that translates to him playing outside the numbers a ton, playing through contact outside. Like, I just don't know what it looks like, right? I just don't know. But as a slot, I mean, this kid's a Pro Bowler waiting to happen. I mean, he is. He can also return kicks. I mean, this kid's your modern space player, your prototype slot receiver at the next level. 6'1", 205, can work in space, can break off routes, can be an short, intermediate, and deep separator. It's a multi-level threat, man. I'm a big fan of Emeka.
Okay, so why is Xavier Worthy your number one wide receiver in this class?
I mean, Marvin Harrison was wide receiver 7 for me because, yeah.
Oh my God, could you imagine?
If someone actually said that, I would just turn off the podcast. I would never listen again.
See, you give me shit all the time for being clickbait, but like, I think one of these days we should just do one show where like the quarterback show, like let's both put Caleb Williams at like 9 and just see what. But by the way, what is it with the amount of? I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but what is it with the amount of people that are putting Caleb Williams at like 3?
Someone putting it 3. Like, I've seen quarterback 2 a bunch for him with Drake number 1. But
that I can understand, but like I have seen some people. There's no in between. It's like people are like perfect like prospect that has no issues, or he's he's not as good as everyone thinks he is. He's a late first rounder.
Oh God!
But I don't know. We don't need to do this. Marvin Harrison Jr. Go ahead.
Marvin Harrison Jr., who's a Philadelphia guy originally, St. Joe's Prep in Philly, which is why a lot of Ohio State fans, I think, want Kyle McCord to be the quarterback because he was actually his high school quarterback as well. Like a cool little note there.
I don't think Marvin Harrison Jr. needs Kyle McCord.
I don't think Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't need any. Who's the kid that transferred there to be just kind of depth piece? It was an Oregon State kid. Shoots. What was that kid's name? Chance Nolan? Is he Chance Nolan?
Chance Nolan. Yeah.
Oh, wait. Was Chance Nolan the one that transferred over there? No, it wasn't. Who's the kid that transferred over there? Man. Gosh. I'm an idiot.
Let me look.
Yes. Please go look. But they brought in that kid, and he's like a third stringer that's just going to kind of be there, right, to hold a clipboard. But that kid could make Marvin Harrison look good because Marvin Harrison can make anyone look good. I mean, that's just kind of where you are. This kid, Joe, this is one of those kids that I just don't think there's a hole in his game, right? Like, he can run. I think he's going to be a high 4.4 type of kid, 4.47, 4.48, somewhere in that ballpark, right? He can separate you just with long speed. He can separate with length because he's long as heck. Like, his catch radius is stupid. But I think the great thing about him is, one, he has great hands, can win above the rim, can catch the football outside of his frame. But I think we overdo the whole his father was an NFL player too often sometimes, right? But the fact that his father was an NFL player, I think has been a big help to him, man, because he understands how to run routes as good as anyone, how to attack leverage as good as anyone. This kid at 6'3.5", 6'4", 208 pounds listed, he can separate just by being an incredible route runner, man. He can break it off and he can create easy separation. This is a multi-level threat. This is a kid that can win vertically. This is a kid that can win to the middle of the field. This is a kid that can win outside the numbers. He could be a big slot if he wanted to. I don't know why you would necessarily put him there, but the point is that this is a scheme and alignment diverse football player who can win at every level. There's not really a hole. I guess the only hole would be, is he a great after catch player? No. I mean, like, he does most of his work before and at the catch point, right? Which is fine. But like, if you're asking him to be a West Coast after catch type of receiver, is that going to be his best spot? No, it's not going to be his best spot. But there's just no hole in this kid, right? Like, catch points, route runner, good enough athlete to win on all levels of the field, really high attention to detail, plucks the football consistently, has very strong hands. There's not any hole in Marvin Harrison, man. Like, he's just a really, really good prospect. Should go in the top 5 to 10 picks. Like, he's a really good football player. That's just kind of all you can say about him. He's almost boring to watch at some time.
Yes, that's a really good way to put it. Tristan Gebbia is the guy. And the expectation for Marvin Harrison Jr. has almost been established that he's just going to win every single play. And you almost catch yourself being like, well, like, why didn't he get the ball on that play or whatnot? besides that point, though, you hit the nail on the head. He was on the freaks list for a reason. His testing is going to be a clinic at the combine. Like, he is going to put up stupid numbers, probably on the bench, vertical, 40, all that stuff. And then you talked about, I see a kid that's busting his ass with the technical refinement in his route running. Like, there is little to no issues with his feet, his timing, all of it. Like, he just knows how to consistently.
It's efficient. It's all efficient stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. For his size to be able to do the things that he does and to accelerate off the line of scrimmage and then to make those catches without like any chance of dropping it, it's silly. He is going to be a top 5 pick. Like, we don't need to even debate that. I think right now he's my number 2 player in the entire class. I put him right behind Brock Bowers. Here's the only thing, and I need to, before anyone gets all worked up in the comments, because we always do this when we talk about it, this is not a massive issue that I'm saying like, oh, he's not a top 10 pick. The only thing that I think is not talked about a lot is that his change of direction it's good, but it's probably his biggest weakness. Because if you watch him, it takes him a bunch of steps to change direction. He makes up for it by the fact that he is a really good route runner and he knows how to not let that be an issue.
Sure.
But because he's tall and he's so long, he's not like a plant and go. He's not a Emeka Egbuka. He's just not. That's the only thing for me. It's just that, right. It's just, that's the only thing for me. And I think everyone talks about him as this perfect prospect. I don't think we're there. Like, we're never going to get a perfect prospect. That's never going to happen. We need to stop trying to do it. So the one small negative, I think, for him is that change of direction.
I mean, that's fair. Again, I think that he's not a great after catch player. Like, that would be my negative in his game, but he's just not many holes, man. I mean, Joe, I would say it like this too. We talked about, his father being a NFL Hall of Famer, right? Like, that matters. But also all the reports you hear from Ohio State, and some of this stuff is overblown at times, but it sounds like he's the best worker on that football team. And I think that he plays like that is the case. Like, he is a worker. Yeah. He's a worker bee. Do we have time for some quick shout outs for some other players that we watched, or no? Do we have time?
Yeah, you got a minute. You can give me a couple.
Okay. Just missed the list. I had Jalen McMillan from Washington, who I think is an incredibly efficient route runner and can change direction really well, at great hands, really good football player in the slot at the next level. Xavier Worthy was a guy that's incredibly volatile, but I still gave him a 3rd round grade because that guy can go, man. He is an incredible athlete. Ball skills are bad. Still needs to improve play strength, but we shall see. And one of the biggest sleepers in this class, Joe, J. Michael Sturdivant, who was at Cal and is now transferred to UCLA.
You dick. You were teasing me and you're like, oh, I found this guy that I like. And you gave me all these details. And then I looked it up and I found him. And then I sent you and you're like, that's not the guy that I'm talking about. Yeah. So it clearly was the guy that you're talking about.
That was the guy I was talking about. Yeah. Joe, 6'3", 205, transferred from UCLA, had over 60 receptions, over 700 yards last year. My guy ran a 10.39 100-meter coming out of high school and had a sub-21 second 200-meter. My guy can run. The rest of his game needs to, kind of follow suit a little bit more consistently. But that kid is a vertical threat waiting to happen, man. J. Michael Sturdivant, watch him in the Chip Kelly offense this year. Oh, and Dorian Singer's overrated, but that's another conversation for another day.
Yeah, I didn't even actually waste time watching him, and I'm glad that I didn't watch him. One guy that I want to give a quick shout out to, a little bit of a deep pull, and I've brought his name up a million times. I brought him to the table, and I think I was denied by bringing him to the table with RPM. Okay. Dre McCray from Texas Tech, who's the Austin Peay transfer. I'm not saying that this is going to eventually be a first-round guy, but I see some upside as a productive slot player in the NFL and a really good kick returner. Like, I just thought that he was a strong route runner. He was very shifty. My biggest calling for him is the fact that he was really productive against Alabama and it wasn't in garbage time. I think that anyone who wants to go watch some good tape, go watch Dre McCray, Austin Peay versus Alabama. Texas Tech has a lot of potential this year. And I think that he could be a piece to their offense taking another step forward.
So we're doing FCS shout outs.
All right, you get one, and then we got to call it. We got to call it.
Oh man, I like the Yankee twins, man, but I like Jackson a whole lot more than I like Jaden. So Jackson Yankee is a late day 3 football player, man. You could tell. Number 10, white slot receiver. He thinks he's Cooper Kupp, and I absolutely love it.
And he's not Cooper Kupp.
He's not, but he's a good player, man. He's a good player, though.
Both of the Mercer receivers are overrated. At Joe DeLeone, at
like
Rise and
Harper.
Draft.
I like Harper. Oh, man.
We'll be back with more. We'll be back next week with our quarterback rankings. Enjoy the rest of your week, folks.